All right, welcome everyone. We're Semblance of Sanity. I'm Caleb.
I'm Jacob.
And I'm here for
Dr. Stone, Season 2, Episode 7. Chrome has escaped.
Yep, he did
awesome.
it.
Got back to the camp with friends and everything.
With his science and
Indeed.
Ability to cleverly learn some things.
Yes, even though he didn't do it quite right, or
Yes.
not what he intended.
Well, not only did that, he didn't do it alone.
Yeah.
He had help.
We still don't know who
What
that
kind of help
was.
was that? We'll have to find out.
We will.
But I have theories.
Yeah, but Tsukasa will probably recognize, assuming that it wasn't Tsukasa who let him go, that the battery's gone. That's kind of a big deal.
Kind of big deal.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Y'all, without further ado, let's get into this. All right, everyone, now be sure to go check out the reaction portion of the video in the description below, then come back here for the discussion.
That episode was awesome.
This episode was fantastic.
Holy cow. Like,
Ukyo, the reveal that, okay, our little Tsukasa crazy theory, but Ukyo just set the battery up because he was like, no, this would have gone way worse, Senku, if you had shown up, so I saved your life here.
Right.
And this is the person that avoids conflict. He calls himself a coward, but no, what it is, he values life too much to watch people die anymore.
Yeah, and yet, what do you do when, you can't, like, it's not like he could have directly stood up to Tsukasa and, succeeded, right?
No, but at the very least, it's the idea of, I didn't do anything, though.
Yeah.
I did nothing.
Right.
There's a difference between being like, hey, Tsukasa, I'm not okay with this.
Yeah, maybe, do we need to do this?
Like, do we need to do this? Why don't we just focus on who we're reviving instead of specifically breaking down statues?
Yeah.
Like,
if we build a good empire and then they get revived later, that doesn't matter to us because, we'll be the dominant force or something. But
no, nothing.
Yeah.
So he's operating on a lot of guilt and maybe some shame with regard to this as well, because as we saw in his past, he was someone that was very much like a first responder to disaster scenarios and all kinds of stuff like that. So he very much has issue with sitting on the sidelines and not doing anything.
Right.
And more power to you. That's a great dramatic introduction for his character. And we had already kind of gone through the initial legwork of understanding that he was definitely on their side, but it was a question of why and to what extent would he be on their side. And I like the condition as well.
Yep. And
attached to that. Yeah,
I love that he is not so trusting of Senku that basically, like, because some people they get brought over by Senku's heart, right? And it's great.
Sure. Yeah.
But he's much more doubting, and he's very sort of pessimistic about the situation that they're all in.
Right.
Rightly so.
Because the world almost ended.
And hey, Tsukasa's new empire is at least something. Oh, there's this Senku guy. Why should he be any better than Tsukasa? Right? Like, and that's a legit question, especially if he doesn't know Senku, right?
Right.
So he's like, hey, no. I'm not just gonna say that I want this to happen. I'm gonna say you better make sure that no one dies because I can end your whole play here, right?
And I'll go back to the way things were, and I'll be okay with that. Because if I'm just turning over control of things to a different person that I know less, it's also a murderer. No, not worth it.
Yep.
I really love also the way in which he did use his hyper-competent scouting hearing abilities to determine that Yuzuriha's mission was to reforge statues from shard fragments and such over the course of all these, years? It's been a long time.
I think it's been like a few months.
I think it's more than that, but
really?
It's been a long time.
It has been a long time, and the idea that was something that even made him be like, you know what, maybe this Senku guy, maybe he's legit,
Right.
I don't fully trust him just yet, but
because it'd be pretty easy to just determine that that's just Yuzuriha.
Sure, just doing that. On her own or something like that,
no.
And the idea that that's something that's possible, it's like awesome, because if Tsukasa does end up getting Nakamud, right? Which is kind of how this arc has to end, because...
No, it doesn't.
Well, hold on. In order for it to truly be a bloodless revolution...
Oh, I see what you're saying.
They have to either so thoroughly thrash Tsukasa that he decides to run away, which I have a tough time buying because Tsukasa is so freakishly strong.
There's multiple ways this can go. It's not a binary thing. What's your second way, though?
Well, or they Nakama him. But,
oh no, so there's another way. There's another way.
Okay.
It's another way here. He just clip his wings. He has no one else on his side.
and he doesn't have the nitric acid and stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
And then,
So then he just has to leave.
sure.
Eventually, it just comes down to the point where he's like, "Oh,
Yeah, because
I've
for all
lost
his
the
strength, if he doesn't have people around him, then
right,
he's
I've
still
lost
just
the
one dude.
philosophical battle. I've lost the actual battle of the ideals and the
Sure.
dreams and stuff."
Yeah,
so,
but so yeah, different reasoning for how they would make him leave, but the same
but he
result.
wouldn't be Nakama at that point.
Sure, but
necessarily.
it's still a thing of he leaves, right?
Yes, I got you.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that it's a diplomacy victory. It's not necessarily a thrashing one.
Uh,
It's one where they have all the people on his side theoretically join
Sure, but
Senku.
they would have to defeat him in some way, and if he
Mm-hmm.
doesn't end up getting Nakamata, I still wouldn't really see. The show would have its work cut out for it to fully sell me on that kind of an ending. And
Well,
it's still,
yeah, this is Dr. Stone. It'll, yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
yes. But with the thing that I was going to bring up is that with him getting Nakama, that's kind of hard to do when he's been essentially mass murdering people, right?
Right.
Even if he had his own reason for doing it, cool motive, still murder. Well, apparently not murder because they undo it and here you go. And then that can be a way for that kind of topic of discussion to be
Sure.
dealt with in a much more comfortable way, kind of. And especially since we've now established the split between him and Hyoga, where Hyoga's like, oh yeah, I'll kill some of our people, whereas Tsukasa's like, no, I remember all their names and
I respect them.
and I respect I pay my respects regularly and things like that. That puts it in a very different light, because then that means that there's at least something that we can get at for the potential Nakama-ing of Tsukasa.
Well, he values the lives of those that he sees as alive. In his perspective, none of the people in the statues are alive, so that's why he does it, and he doesn't call it murder, basically. In this case here, we're getting
Right.
this set up here, so we have two angles, like you're talking about, to where he can eventually get Nakamat. I don't think he has to be Nakamat in any specific time frame. It's just the idea that his empire is going to fall here. He's going to lose.
Right.
Regardless of whether or not what his heart of the matter of his heart in this changes or not, his empire will lose. He'll either lose the nitric acid and he'll never find Senku again, because at the very least they have vehicles.
Sure.
And they're not stuck to a single place anymore. They can just leave
Well,
and go somewhere else.
The only instance in that they couldn't fully leave is that if, say, it was down to like Tsukasa and Hyoga, right? And Senku and everyone left the cave, but they like took the nitric acid with them.
Yeah.
That would delay Tsukasa, but it wouldn't actually stop him, because then they can just gather it again and repeat the process.
No, totally. But if he loses, say, all of his men, if he, say, has some aspect about the cave that gets, broken or something like that, like they destroy it, they ram the steel gorilla thing into it in some way, like to just destroy the cave. That would be, I don't know why they would do that necessarily.
Right. Maybe I could see like Hyoga or Tsukasa potentially doing that if it's like some I don't know, crazy circumstances or accident or whatever.
Right. Yeah, the arc, though, is going to end, though, with Tsukasa losing.
Yep.
We're debating over, really, the details as to how and what he loses and all that. And I don't think that's really important. It's just the fact that we now have all this bearing down on Tsukasa, but this is not the end of the show.
Nope.
This is the 7th episode. We have... I think it's 4 more episodes still.
And they called the next episode is supposed to be called the final battle. So it's
that means that
go?
there's stuff that happens after the final battle that's relevant and has conflict attached to it.
And we have now stakes as far as how we know that they have to win, right? Because, they were told, if anybody dies, then I'm not going to work with you anymore. Now, shortly thereafter, then he was like, well, okay, with the kind of people that they are, what am I talking about? Blood will be shed. And that's something that I'm curious to see how it plays out, because Hyoga can be beaten by Tsukasa, right? And if Tsukasa finds out that Hyoga killed his men, then I think that one of the two major issues of Hyoga and Tsukasa will then be taken care of, right? And then maybe that'll break some of Tsukasa's spirit or something. But yeah.
Yeah, Ukyo's comment about there being actual bloodshed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was something I felt like was like a really eerie aspect of where he's starting to realize the difference between Hyoga and Tsukasa.
Mm-hmm.
Is that he had no problem basically turning and selling in Senku to Tsukasa because he's like, I know Tsukasa. I know what I'm working with here.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really know
Yep.
you, Senku. But now he's realizing I don't know Hyoga then.
Right.
Hyoga, I actually don't.
There is a way that things could get worse.
Yeah,
You know.
and one of the ways I think it could get really worse is that Hyoga has something that he's planning that could be against, everyone in Senku's group and stuff like that.
Sure.
But he also doesn't necessarily care about the lives of those that are in Tsukasa's empire.
Right.
Which means, Tsukasa could get ousted. That's a way that he can lose without actually having the empire of all these people and stuff actually get defeated.
That would be pretty satisfying to see Tsukasa end up needing to team up with Senku to take out Hyoga. That would be pretty cool.
Yeah, that'd be pretty cool.
But
the other side of things that's just really, really wholesome and fun here is that the Lillian Weinberg situation worked really well. But not only that, having this all be a thing to tie in the Taiju Yuzuriha finally reuniting with Senku
in person,
and getting to have this happen here, while it was kind of brushed off with a little bit of comedy here, they haven't seen him in a long time.
Yeah.
Hearing his voice was essentially like seeing him,
Mm-hmm.
So we already had that like big emotional moment.
Right.
But I'm really excited for this battle to be over so that they can go back to being like, hey,
Yep.
we're a trio again.
Pals hanging out.
Yeah, pals hanging out. And then also Yuzuriha and Taiju can go back and revisit the whole thing of
The confession. Yeah.
well, this conflict, might be entering a new stage. It's going to be different, but we're together and we're not on some secret mission or what have you anymore. So
maybe
we can,
Yeah. I can't remember what exactly was the thing that they said had to happen before Taiju would go back and do his confession for real.
Yeah.
Can't remember if it was the Tsukasa situation or just the Stone World situation, but
yeah, it might have been something that was the Stone World situation because I don't remember.
Yeah.
But I also really loved the idea of the characters who are in the Nation of Science or what have you, having this knowledge of, I've never seen you,
Right.
but I've heard your voice and I
Yes.
know who you are. Taiju walks in and he's got like this, like he's the most badass, toughest, overpowered, ridiculous guy. And I'm like, yeah, Taiju, it's you. But all these other people knowing him as if he's this legendary warrior from a time beyond. And
Chrome,
just,
I want to
so
see
cool.
Chrome get surprised of like, oh, for some reason I thought your hair would be different, because he imagined it like Senku's hair and all that.
I
But
thought he'd be smarter, being Senku's friend and all.
I'm also really glad that the whole situation of who slipped the battery to Chrome was dealt with very quickly.
Yeah.
Because Senku's stupid smart. So, the only reason it wasn't talked about in the previous episode is just because it wasn't part of that episode's conflict. It's
Right.
That's for this episode, right?
And we wanted a hyper complicated, answer for it when it's like, no, it's literally
just
the most
Ukyo.
obvious
Yep.
one there.
The person who's been helping him this entire time, surprise, helped him again. Yeah.
Right. I'm surprised though. The delegation aspect of Tsukasa trusting his men with regards to taking care of things like the battery and the loot and stuff there didn't come up as a thing, which means that either, I would say, he trusts them.
Sure.
One, they're, he's incompetent, which I would say it's a bit of a loose thing.
Or at the very least, he can't manage everything himself.
Well, that's
he
the
might not
thing.
know all the details.
That's what I was saying. The trust thing is because he delegates that stuff to them.
Yep.
But the other kind of thing that would be pretty cool here is that he's assuming, he took it back because it's his thing.
Oh,
And
sure.
they're
If he
so
busted
smart.
out. Yeah.
Yeah. And the idea of him thinking like, this is like a mini Senku I'm dealing with here. Oh, of course.
Sure.
Don't worry about it that he got away. That's,
Right.
that's not a big deal. I expect that kind of stuff from someone that smart. That's fine. Don't worry about it.
And even though he didn't end up being like, how did the battery get taken? He still ended up finding out that there are games afoot. And that scene of him going back and his own humanity being the thing that clues him into Senku's plan, I think that's pretty poetic.
That is poetic.
But then just the part of when he sees the microphone and he's like, shit, and then yanks it up,
Pulls it,
and the phone comes falling off of the Senku on the side of it, and he's just like, his eyes are wide, and he's like,
no. No, the one person who could ruin all of this. And now we get the actual conflict here. And I would assume actually that this final battle isn't necessarily just a 3-minute encounter, even though they said 20 seconds will decide all of humanity. Just because you maybe get the cave or you get the stuff in the cave, it's not going to take long after that for them to give chase. And then things can get really dicey, and this could spill over into a multi-episode conflict.
They barricade the cave with panels of the super material, and then they turn it into a fortress.
We saw him with just a bit of shale from one of the things that he was digging around just fine. He just throws that aside, just uses his fingers and just he just digs through the side of the cave.
Yeah, punch right through it. Yeah.
I mean, he's a pillar, man.
Basically.
Yeah. But yeah, that's kind of the majority of what I wanted to talk about this episode. I just wanted to make sure previously, apologies about this, is clarifying that the idea of Tsukasa not needing to be Nakama'd at the end of the encounter.
Gotcha.
That's all I was trying to bring up.
If they don't, it'll just be a much harder road ahead to do in conjunction with the make sure no one dies. Because like Tsukasa could their whole force that they're attacking the cave with, Tsukasa could beat them all by himself, probably.
Like I don't know. I still. Oh man, now
picks up the tank and
a lot of
starts
things
smashing
you've been saying,
people with it.
I think are slightly on.
Yeah.
But like I don't think so necessarily.
Well, let me just say that if I am curious if we end up seeing what Tsukasa's fighting like max potential is,
Sure.
what that is, because we have never seen like the equivalent of like the max limits of Senku's like scientific knowledge and
what
all
are
that
limits?
stuff,
Limits are dumb.
Yeah, limits are dumb, right?
Limits are dumb. They have infinity on the stats that they are in.
Exactly.
So as long as that's there, they're fine. I think the big point here is that regardless of whether killing someone is on the table, maiming them and with katanas, like just Jacob, Kohaku, all Kohaku needs to do is just cut his Achilles.
But I could totally see
one of his feet.
I could
and
totally
he's not
see
running anywhere.
I could see Tsukasa though literally just catching the blade and breaking it. Like
yes, of course. But all it would take then is for him to mess up and get something like his Achilles slit. He is not going to bleed out. He is not going to die. It's the perfect way to hamstring him and go, yes,
sure.
Now, look at you. All you have is your muscles, which are failing you right now. I mean, really, in another way, like even if it's not that, Taiju is so bulky, tough, and things like that. I could see him just tanking Tsukasa for a little bit.
I think he would be able to keep Tsukasa busy for a bit.
Yeah, like 20 seconds.
And that would be tactically very helpful. And thankfully Tsukasa isn't necessarily here at the cave, right? He's off doing stuff with what's his face.
With
Hyoga,
yeah.
With Hyoga. So, they don't need to worry about the two super dangerous players, right? And once they take the cave, even if they can't keep the cave, they still get the nitric acid in there, they put it in the tank and they made a great getaway, right? But yeah.
Yeah, and then they maybe have a crew of people that split off from the tank, and then they use the tank as a decoy. See, I'm telling you, man, this is my favorite thing, and this has to happen at some point, is that they're going to track the tank's treads, and they're going to, one by one, slowly jump off and split off from the tank as the tank just continues on in a direction, and then they finally find the tank and realize it's empty, there's nothing there. Who knows where they are now?
I would be very sad for Kaseki if they ended up needing to abandon the tank, because he already said goodbye once, and then the tank survived and was still alive.
But that would be the fun way to test maybe the limits of Tsukasa's strength, is the idea of him chasing the tank for like a week.
I want Tsukasa at some point to just pick up the tank.
He can't like keep up with it,
Maybe. Who knows? Yeah.
But y'all, thank you so much for watching this episode's reaction and discussion. If you want to see the next episode's reaction and discussion right now, though, go check out the link in the description below for our Patreon. You can get on early access there. You can watch full-length timer reactions there, and all this comes with Discord access, so you can chat with us in the community there about this show, about anime in general, and also be sure to check out our Twitch channel.
We stream every weekday. The info's in the description.
Yeah, so if any of that interests you, we'll see you there. But until then, we're Semblance of Sanity. I'm Caleb.
I'm Jacob.
And we'll see you all
next time.